Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered. I'm Riley Russell. I'm a real estate agent based out of Roanoke, Virginia, and pretty excited to catch up with a friend from Radford University. I was actually just told that he's actually the mortgage goat, at least that's one of his nicknames, and he works with Mortgage USA. So, Carl Svetson, how are you doing? It's been a long
I'm
time.
blessed. I'm grateful to be here. I've seen your shows and I love what I've seen so far.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this one doesn't disappoint you now that you're kind of behind the camera with this one. But how have you been since Radford? I guess I know that you majored in finance and accounting. Is that right?
Accounting and criminal justice. So I
Oh,
started
okay.
as criminal justice, wasn't the right fit, but I was so far along, I decided to finish it anyways.
Yeah, might
Um,
as well get that double major, what you paid for. So how did you fall into lending then? Because you probably could have gone a couple different avenues with that background.
yeah, when I first left Radford, I was a bank teller at Wells Fargo. Thought that I was going to find my way into the finance biz through Wells Fargo, applied for a bunch of jobs with them. Didn't really get any answers for about like 2 months. And in the middle of that
Mm,
2 months, one of my buddies who I met at Radford, he was good friends with one of my roommates, and he crashed on our couch for like a month.
yeah.
Great friend. He told me, he's like, hey, you should check out this mortgage company. And at first I was like, nah, I'm not interested. And then after a month or so of not getting any responses from Wells Fargo, I said, hey, might as well give it a look, give it a try. And, really everything came so quickly to me in the first month that I was there that it just seemed like a great fit. And then I set really high goals, so high that some of the people in the company thought I was crazy. I mean, I guess a little crazy, but a good kind of crazy.
Yeah, good kind of
And
crazy.
and then I accomplished those goals and eventually decided to take the next step to. It was a call center, so I decided to
Mm,
take the next step to go out into full retail, where you cultivate your relationships and you bring in your own business, because that's really like the long-term success model as far as I'm concerned in this business, where you're going to have a lot more sustainable growth if you're building your own relationships, building your own business, kind of like you're an entrepreneur, even though you
mhm.
work for a company.
That's awesome though, because I feel like with that background, you really could have gone anywhere, and more power to you. Like I took like a couple accounting classes and like business calc and econ, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. Like I like the writing, I like the talking, like I like the creativity. So that's kind of where I kind of fall in line, and I guess that helps on the real estate side a little bit. But yeah, more power to you with numbers. That is not my forte for sure.
I was a total tax nerd. I loved the tax classes, and I'm glad I took them because it ended up providing me a lot of value now that I look at people's tax returns all the time. So
Yeah,
at least I know what I'm looking at.
I'm sure. I'm not even going to get started on taxes because they just kind of make my blood pressure rise a little bit, but I'll stop there now. But that's awesome. I kind of feel like everyone kind of has that moment after college. If they aren't already like, engineering or doctor or lawyer or something like that, they kind of fall into what they're going to be doing for the long haul. I know I did. Um, I mean, I thought I was going to be like a fashion writer, and then I went into recruiting, which I'm glad I did because that actually helps with the networking and connections and um, cold calling and all that craziness that kind of comes with this industry a little bit. Um, but a lot of the times that from what I've found with talking to people, you just kind of fall into it and then you're like, oh wait, I kind of like this, and wait, I'm kind of good at it too. So that's cool. And so how many years have you been doing this now?
6.5 years. I do love how you said that because nobody really, when they're like 4 or 5, when they're growing up, nobody's like, I want to be a mortgage broker.
For the most part, no.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Well, that's cool. I mean, I feel like you've kind of found your passion and calling though, because I do see what you post a lot of the time and you're always looking happy and stuff, which if you're happy with what you're doing, you aren't really working. Um, that's kind of just how I kind of think of it, as cheesy as it is. Um,
yeah. I do
but
find that this business, you can kind of overwork yourself.
oh yeah.
The first like 4 or 5 years that I was doing this, I really just dumped everything into it, and instead of like finding a balance and realizing that there's other parts of life that are going to allow you to bring a better version of yourself. It made things a lot more stressful.
Mhm.
And so like about a year ago, I kind of had like, for lack of better words, like an epiphany where
Mhm.
I realized, I'm not a loan officer named Carl. I'm Carl who happens to be a loan officer. There's like a lot
Mm.
more parts to you other than your career. Like I let my career kind of define me for a long time. And then when I found balance in, other parts of my life, emotionally, spiritually, physically, once I did that, I started working a tiny bit less, but I was bringing a
Mhm.
lot better version of myself in all my interactions, and I was getting a lot better results. So I think that
No.
balance is important for everybody, especially in this business, because it can kind of take over.
Well, I mean, it's always funny whenever I try to tell, like, another realtor that I'm talking to, I'm like, "Hey, have a great weekend, try not to work so hard," and then I'm like, "Sorry, I know that's silly to say, like, we just like you guys, it's not like a typical 9 to 5. Like, there's stuff that you're doing weekends, nights, sometimes holidays, and you have to find that balance, and like you said, like, the first couple of years, you were, just grinding, and I feel like that's kind of built into after you graduate college or, even high school, you're like, "Okay, I need to figure out what I'm doing, and I need to be good at it, and I need to excel," and so there's kind of that pressure whenever you start a new job, especially whenever you're entry level or junior, that you want to be good, you want to know everything that you're talking about, and you want to set those goals and meet them. But usually, and I mean, this definitely happened for me too. So you're not alone. I mean, I was always on my phone working and I was really good at my job, but I was also like, I am burnt out. Like I need that work life balance. And I think as you get older, you kind of realize what's important. So it takes a minute, but I'm glad that you kind of, took a step back and was like, I'm going to throttle back for a second and focus on me. So that's good. So, how do you kind of um, break up your day a little bit to kind of focus on you and have that work life balance then?
Well, I guess it all starts with like time blocking. I
Mm,
mean, there's going to be some parts of my day is driven by my realtor partners and my customers. And what I mean by that is if people schedule appointments with me, then, those are already baked into my schedule. But then there's other moments where, I, the way you really set yourself, up for success is you have to be willing to work outside of regular business hours
mm,
for number one, your realtor partners, because if you don't answer, then it's like, well, they can call another lender. That's pretty easy. But
mm-hmm,
number two, for the customers, I mean, most of the high level customers that you're going to work with are working the same time that you're working, so
yep,
you have to be available outside of those regular business hours to be able to provide them the best service and, kind of facilitate the transaction in a way that's going to be memorable, because people want to work with people that care. They don't care what you know until they know that you care, kind of thing.
mm-hmm,
But at the same time, uh, nothing gets sold over email. Nobody can get to know you over email. People like
nope,
to work with people that they like, and they're not going to like you if they don't talk to you on the phone. So you can't do it with things over email and text like 100% of the time. You got to
exactly.
have those genuine conversations, and sometimes that's not going to happen with people between 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm,
So I find time for myself, like gym time and spiritual time, sometimes during 9 to 5 hours, because I know that I'm going to put in the work, before or
afterwards,
outside of
yeah.
those hours. And, you just got to find a way to fit those things into what would be a regular working day.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at my calendar every night, the night before, and see what I have for the following day, and see where I can fit that stuff in, where my availability is, and then I just time block.
Yep. No, and that's a great tip to have because I wasn't really doing that the last couple of years, and finally I'm like, all right, I need to live and breathe by my calendar, especially adding like a toddler into the mix because I like to think I run the house. I don't. My toddler does. Like he totally does. And so there's a lot of things that pop up with him that I'm like, I have to drop everything else, which luckily a lot of people understand that. Um, But with time blocking, it's like a lot of people are like, I don't have time for it. It's like, do you not have time for it, or are you not making it a priority? Because if you're making it a priority, you're going to find the time to do it. And you need to make yourself a priority, because then you're going to be the best version of you for your clients and for your realtor, counterparts and stuff like that. So plus 1,000 on everything you said.
Sometimes if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen.
Oh
So
no. Oh no. Not
everything
not at
goes on the
all.
calendar.
Not at all. But I don't know about you. So this just kind of popped into my brain. So if you're following the calendar and you live and breathe by it, do you also love like a good to-do list, or not so much?
Oh, I'm a little old school. I got to put pen to paper on
Yep.
things. For the longest time in this career, I would actually take a lot of my loan applications on pen and paper. Uh,
Okay.
Now with the way that everything's digitalized and people can kind of do it on their phone themselves, that's less common.
Mm,
But I remember a lot more about the people that I connect with, the people that I work with when I put pen to paper. It's harder to keep track of that stuff because then you're shuffling through like 100 papers,
yep.
but it sticks in my brain more. So I don't know. I've always gotten more value out of uh, putting pen to paper, and like I always have like a running notepad. Once that runs out, I have a different one. And I don't know if it's like dopamine or something, but there's some sort of like satisfaction of crossing things off once you're done.
Yes. 1,000%. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because I feel like at at work I would always get made fun of. It's like, you're not taking notes on the computer. I'm like, no, I like my notebook. I like writing it down. I love checking things off on a to-do list. Because I mean, a lot of the times the day flies by and you're like, what did I do? And if you don't have that list to go off of, like, you did a lot of crap. Like, you got a lot done. But what did you actually get done? And not gonna lie, I go back and I like put like things I've done that I didn't originally have on there, just so I can check it off and be like, I did what I needed. I did what I needed. But no, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I feel like I'm old school like that too. But whenever you said the calendar thing, I was like, all right, he's gotta have a system um, to this. Now, I guess this kind of goes along the lines of, um, making time for yourself and having that work-life balance and stuff. But is that the only piece of advice that you'd give, like, a brand new person to this industry coming in, or is there another piece of advice that you would probably like say they have to know?
Ooh, I
That's
might
probably a
have to
loaded
think.
question.
I mean, it's like, how do I choose? Do I have to choose one thing? I mean, I probably
No.
have like three. I'd say number one, pick a niche, because if you don't have something that differentiates yourself from every other realtor or every other lender, then you're easily replaceable. So you got to have something that's going to set yourself apart and make yourself memorable for the people that you work with. So that way is, it's going to set you apart from everybody else, and you bring more value in those interactions. Have as many quality conversations as you can. The more people that you talk to, the more raving fans that you can create, and the more raving fans you have, the more business you're going to get.
Hmm.
And I mean that really comes down to, you know, listening more than talking for the most part. That's kind of why, like, I want you to do more of the talking here, honestly. Um, but one of the training programs I went through a while back talked about the acronym Ford. If you don't know what to talk to somebody about, you can always lean on Ford, where you talk about family, occupation, recreation, and once not on the first conversation, but once you get to an established relationship, talk about their dreams.
Yeah.
So those are really easy things where it's like, well, if you don't know what to say, talk about one of those things. Then so you'll have a quality conversation that way, and then I guess lastly, have a diverse business plan. Like you shouldn't have all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. If you're expecting to get all your business just because you have a large sphere of influence, no matter how big your sphere of influence is, if you don't have steps in your business plan to grow that sphere of influence, eventually that sphere of influence is going to dry up,
Hmm.
right? So I always think everybody should have like a 4-prong approach to whatever their marketing plan is, and you should be spending 90% of your time taking action on those 4 things, 10% of your time planning. Like one of my bosses at my old mortgage company, great businessman. He would always say that he had some great people that they'd plan some great stuff, but they spent all their time planning and they didn't take any action, so nothing ever happened.
No, I love all of those because also it doesn't just work for your side of the business, it works for the entire, I mean, honestly, for anyone who's in the business world, like, and more in like an entrepreneur type of role. But also for realtors, for photographers, for inspectors, like that's awesome. The one thing I'm probably going to steal from you, and I'm probably going to always think about it now, is Ford. That I've never heard it explained that way, and that I feel like is just genius. So thank you for that.
Well, they also said that if you're having trouble thinking about what to talk to somebody about next, when it's a newer relationship, your next question lies in their last answer.
I feel like you're sounding like a little bit like Mr. Miyagi. Like,
I'm a fortune cookie
on,
sometimes. Some of my teammates say I'm a fortune cookie.
Hey, that's fine though. At least you're not a fortune cookie that doesn't have a fortune in it. Like, so
I've never gotten one of those. That's probably unlucky.
Yeah, well, I guess I've been unlucky a few times, but that's fine. No, that's so cool though. Okay. So on top of being the mortgage goat, now you're going to also be like the Mr. Miyagi of mortgages. So that's your new nickname. Take it or leave it.
I'm with it.
But I do want to ask kind of a question I'm always very intrigued in, because we all have memorable moments in this business for sure. So what is the most memorable transaction, like good or bad, indifferent? Like, what is the most memorable one that always seems to like come to mind and you think of?
That's so tough to pick. I don't know.
You can say a couple. We have time.
Yeah. Well, so there was one where I had a guy who was self-employed and he ran his own restaurant. And when you run your own restaurant, or you're just self-employed in general, if you're trying to get approved for a regular mortgage, your tax preparer's goals are the opposite of what your mortgage goals are. They want to lower your tax liability so you pay as little in taxes as possible. So what does that mean for your mortgage? It means that you don't have any income on paper most of the time. So he couldn't get approved for a regular mortgage loan with his restaurant business, but he had like a 30-unit apartment building in DC. And he was making good money from the rents of the apartment building. So we got him approved for his loan with that. And then like 2 weeks before closing, the underwriters looked up the apartment building online and they saw that it recently got listed for sale.
No.
So his real estate agent listed his apartment building for sale before he closed on his new condo. And so he couldn't get his condo because they're like, hey, like if you're selling this property, you're not going to have income from it anymore. So that was a tough one. It was a heartbreaker, but.
So he wasn't able to get it, or did he come back like a couple months later and end up getting it in the end? Or did that not happen?
He ended up going through a hard money lender. So a hard money lender lends at their own terms, a much higher interest rate. And so he's still able to get the condo, but at the expense of his real estate agent making some poor choices for him and poor guidance. So he hired the wrong real estate agent, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
But
such a bummer.
I mean, they also didn't ask enough questions. You can never ask too many questions. The more you know about your client, the more you can help them.
Yep. I completely agree. Because you don't want to be blindsided in the middle of something. And I kind of go off of my first experience with buying a home too. Like, even though sometimes I feel like it's common sense, I'm like, I'm just going to say it just to make sure. And like, if they already know it, perfect. But if they don't, then hopefully it won't happen. Like, taking out a credit card or buying a ton of furniture before you've closed on the house, because you might not necessarily close on the house and you're still going to have all that furniture. And, just all these different things, don't change, if you can, don't change jobs, during the process and, stuff like that. So some things that you think would be common sense, at least like since we're in it day in and day out, I've found it's better to be safe than sorry and actually say it in the beginning and even throughout the process instead of being like blindsided in the middle, being like, okay, how are we gonna figure this out? Because now we have to, we have a slight issue. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
That word's banned in my office. There's
Which
no
one?
issues, there's only challenges. But we don't
Oh,
want more challenges than we need.
that kind of sounds like it's not a price reduction; it's a price improvement.
Ooh, I'm gonna
So
steal that one.
yeah, yeah, I like that one definitely better. It probably also sounds a lot better to the seller a little bit instead of being like, you're losing money. You're not necessarily losing money. We're improving it to gain more exposure on your house since it's been sitting a little bit. No, but I like that. No issues, just challenges. Okay. See, I'm learning stuff from you in like 20 minutes. I love this. So I know with recruiting, and it kind of helped me a lot along the way with cold calling. Um, Gosh, you should have known. I'm glad hardly anyone saw me do my first cold call because that was rough to say the least. But the 7 years of experience with recruiting really kind of helped tee me up and prepare me well for cold calling with real estate because you get told and no in every which way possible. But what is your funniest cold calling story?
I can imagine you with like two phones at the same
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. That's how it goes.
The first place that I started at, it was like before there were like soft phones on your computer and stuff. So we were still using those old brick phones. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the funniest cold call story I have, it was supposed to be, I guess it's a cold call story, but it was supposed to be a warm lead that one of my realtor friends passed along to me. They're like, "Hey, can you call Brian? Brian's supposed to, Brian's interested in buying a house." I was like, okay, they didn't really tell me anything about Brian, and I called him. And I go through the whole application with Brian, and it's like 15 minutes later, he's like, "Hey, by the way, how did you know that I was looking to buy a house?" And I was like, "Oh, well, your realtor such and such." I can't remember who the realtor was. I'm sorry. Uh, they're like, "Your realtor such and such told me to give you a call," and he's like,
Yeah.
"I don't have a real estate agent." I'm like, "What?" Like, I was confused, and he's like, "Yeah, no, no, no. I don't know how you got my number." And then I realized that I was one digit off, and the dude had the same name.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
incredible.
But he still wanted to buy a house though?
Yes.
That's that's incredible. That is
So I got
really
two
good luck.
Brians that day.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. Oh my gosh, that's funny. He was probably like, who's watching me? Who's like, is Siri listening in? Like, all that stuff. That's awesome though that it worked out that way. And that was actually a good cold call in the end. Um, Holy moly.
Well, I went
That's
in with confidence, because I
mhm,
already expected him to kind of have it, have a recommendation about
mhm.
me and know who I am. So the more confident you are, the better energy you bring, the less cold that cold call will be. A lot of people have always told me, like, you smile on the phone, the smile is
Yes.
contagious. They can
That
feel it. I believe that 1000%.
Oh, completely. You sound totally different and you actually you sound like you're happy. And my husband makes fun of me because he's for the last 7 years, he's been listening to me on the phone with recruiting or with real estate now. And he's like, you had your recruiter voice on. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you had your recruiter voice on. And I'm like, oh, whatever. Um,
I've gotten
but
that before too, where somebody's like, "Hey, you're still mortgage Carl right now. Can you just be regular Carl?"
it's like, okay, I've been doing this for how many hours today? All right, I need to chill out, woosah, and just pull out like the regular old Marley. But that makes the biggest difference with cold calling too. Like, don't just dive straight into, hey, do you want to sell a house? Hey, do you want to go, buy a house? Like, ask them how their day's going. Ask them what they did for the weekend. Like, did they watch the football game? Did they have, a ton of food at Thanksgiving? Like, it builds that relationship better, and then also you have stuff to follow up on too, because usually you'll get talking and you'll figure out, yeah, they have like a 4-year-old about the same age as my son, and yeah, I went to this school or whatever. Yeah, they have a soccer game this weekend. Like, it gives you a way to follow up. And obviously, you're sincere, but it gives you another additional reason to follow up instead of just to get a sale. It's to build that relationship too, because it's not, I don't know, it's not something that is the short term game. It's the long term. Like, you have to be in it for the long haul because it's not going to happen overnight. Um, but I'm babbling now at this
I
point.
couldn't agree more, though. Well, they say that every person knows 4 people that are going to move every year. So, it's not about that one transaction. It's about, the
Mm-hmm.
long term, like you said. There's going to be a lot of other deals. So when people get hung up on, missing out on one transaction, it's like, you can't let emotions get in the way, because, the best business people and the best investors, especially in real estate, they don't make emotional decisions. So
Mm-mm.
you got to keep the emotions out of it.
No, I agree. And like you said, like, if they know 4 people and if they have a good conversation with you, if they aren't ready, they're going to refer you. Like, I've had that happen plenty in recruiting, and I've had that happen a little bit in the last year with real estate too. So if they feel like they can gain that connection and everything, they feel comfortable referring you to their friend. And then their friend is also going to in turn feel comfortable working with you because they got a good feeling and information from their friend. So it's literally a win-win all around. Um, but let's see. So we talked about cold calling because that's just kind of the name of the game with this industry, at least a little bit. But how do you handle whenever you have like a difficult, not challenging, or not an issue, sorry, but maybe slightly challenging of a client or of an agent? How do you kind of handle that situation?
Well, I didn't get to hear your best cold call story. I mean, you can tell me later if you don't want to now.
No, I can tell you now. The one that always sticks out is it was super, super early in my recruiting career. I was probably like a year in right after college, um, at a government contractor. And I was working on, I forget what type of role it was, but it was definitely IT. They needed a security clearance and all this stuff. On paper, resume looked awesome. Called with the smile, hey, how are you doing? Hope you had a great weekend. What'd you do? Blah, blah. Wanted no part of it. Absolutely, just like straight to the point. He's like, I just remember him being like, all right, call me back. If it's not 150 an hour, like, I'm not interested. And just call me back whenever you have a role like that. Click. I'm like, oh my God. that was it just kind of blew my mind because, one, I wasn't used to that amount of pay. I'm like, 150 an hour? Are you like a rocket scientist? Which, with the clearance level, and not to go like all nerdy with technical recruiting, but there's some roles that they are extremely smart and they can make a very, very good living with it, especially if they have a clearance piece to it too. So that kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, he wants how much money? And then it also threw me for a loop because he was just so direct, blunt, to the point, and then it was just done in like a matter. It felt to me like eons, and at the same time, like 2 seconds. So it was just, I'll never forget that one. That was wild. I don't think I never at that place I never had a role that could pay him 150 an hour, but I'm sure he got it someplace else.
Those dominant personalities, the
Uh,
more you understand people's personalities, though, the easier it is to relate to them and continue, to provide value. He must have been a strong D, is what we call
yes.
on the disc profile.
Yep. I actually just did disc too.
Oh, what were your results?
I am majority C with a little bit of D.
Cool.
What are yours?
I'm a D and an I.
Oh,
Party
okay.
and power, baby.
I am not surprised by that
Yeah.
whatsoever. from from our Radford days, I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah. I saw the
Um,
C coming with the way that you sent me your bullet points of questions.
oh yeah, I'm detailed to the end, and like I love organization and like having a process and everything. It just gives me like, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but can't your profiles kind of change as you kind of go through your career? Like, if I feel like mine would have been totally different first year in than what it is now 7 years later.
I think they can, but I don't think they change a whole lot. I feel like it's pretty common for the D and the I to kind
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
coexist a lot, and then the S and the C to coexist a lot. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
uncommon for you to have some D and a C. So
Hey, I'm just
that's pretty
special.
cool. You're like crossed.
No, I'm just kidding.
You're a hybrid.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious about that. It's kind of like all the Enneagram stuff and like introvert, extrovert, all that. I forget what that one's called. Um, but I don't know. Now my brain's all thinking on that side of things about like personality and like traits and all that. But going back to something you said a little bit earlier about, you were starting at Wells Fargo and you were kind of getting made fun of having such lofty goals. So what were those goals? Do you remember what those goals were?
Yeah, well, so the first mortgage company I started at, I was there. It was a small family-owned company. Uh, I learned a lot there. Really would not be where I am today if I didn't start there, because there was some great sales training and sales tips that I got while I was there uh, for about like 2.5 years. But when I first came in, I said I started in August, and I was like, next year I'm going to be top 5 banker in the company. And the following year, I was number 5 in the company. And there's like 70 bankers at the time. And then when I accomplished that goal, I said, all right, I'm going to be number 1 in the company next year. And then I did it. And, just everybody thought I was crazy just because those were, pretty audacious statements at the time for somebody that had never even closed a loan before. So
No, I think that's awesome. I think you're kind of putting it out into the universe and like you're being like, I'm going to do this. And you're also, I mean, if you're D and I, you're definitely determined. So that's, if you run into a challenge, not an issue, a challenge, um, then you're just going to tackle it head on. That's just kind of, I feel like your personality with it. Um,
there's
so,
a lot of things that can frustrate you in this business. Like, if you didn't talk to somebody about the do nots, or especially if you did talk to them about the do nots and then they do them
mhm.
anyways, and they make things more difficult, people still expect you to close the loan, so you got to find solutions and stuff. And uh, it, I incorporated early on what my team lead at my first mortgage company nicknamed the Tiger 10, because apparently Tiger Woods would give himself 10 seconds
Huh.
every time he messed up a shot or a putt to be as mad as he wanted about it. And then after those 10 seconds, put it behind you, move on, and, focus on the next thing.
That's
So
genius.
I would always get really frustrated, let myself have 10 seconds of being angry or upset or whatever. Get those emotions out, because it's not good to keep them all up, stirred up in
No,
your brain and stuff. And then after you get them out, you got to move on fairly quickly, because, you're not going to get anything done by just, sitting around complaining and crying about it. But
nope.
it's not good to hold those in either. So the Tiger 10.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I kind of do that too. Like, I'm not one to just kind of sit and wallow in it. Like, I'll be like, all right, this sucks. And I'll let myself, I probably give myself more like 30 minutes, not like just 10 seconds. Um, um, but you, you're never going to get anything done or get anywhere if you just sit and wallow in it. Like, you, if it didn't work out, however it was going, that whenever it became a challenge, not issue. Now I'm catching myself. Um, um, like, what did you do wrong and how can you fix it? Like, how can you learn from it? But it, like you said, it's not going to do you any good if you just hold on to it and not even like allow yourself to feel those emotions. Because there's a lot of things in this business that can get you frustrated and upset. And it's mainly because, to me, it's mainly because you're working with people. You're not working with robots. People are going to do whatever they want. They have their own personalities. They have their own ideas. They have their own like reasons behind doing things. You can't control people. It's literally not possible. But control what you can control and then try to help. I don't know if mitigate, trying to figure out the right way to phrase this. Like, Control what you can control, and then just tackle whatever comes your way outside of that. But
That's how you find serenity. I love it.
oh my gosh, we're just fortune cookies right now. Um, so let's see.
So you
What?
asked me difficult customer, difficult realtor
No, I was
partner.
talking about your goals, but that kind of in what your goals were whenever everyone was kind of making fun of you,
Mhm.
I guess. One, super impressive for you achieving both of those. That's incredible. But two, what are your goals for 2023? Because I'm sure you already have some lofty goals written down on a
I
list.
haven't finished my business plan. You caught me.
Come on.
Oh yeah, I'm halfway done with it. I'll have it finished in the next day or two, but um,
Well, you probably have at least one goal that you can share, right?
easy one. Yeah, I set this goal a couple months ago because I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I believe in a right now resolution. You know, if you want to do something, don't wait for New Year's to do it. Let's do it right now. Come on
Yep.
now. Uh, so I set a goal, I don't know, 3 months ago that by August of 2023, I want to grow our team by another 5 loan officers. So
Awesome.
we have 6 loan officers on our team now. I want to get 5 more in here. Let's go.
Awesome. And you're the manager currently, right?
So six people, including myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your managing style? Are you kind of like hands-on and like, like in everyone's business? Or are you kind of like, all right, go fly. And if you have questions, come back.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little bit of a hybrid. It kind of depends on so like one teammate on my team is pretty much kind of taking over my book of business.
Mhm.
I'm still in the mix with a lot of it because I'm not fully non-producing yet. So in that situation, a lot of my realtor partners are still always asking me for updates, and they want to talk to me about things, and they will talk to her about a bunch of stuff, but I have to be more in the mix on that. So I'm a little bit more of a micromanager just on that situation until I can
Mhm.
totally let go, which I'm a
Yeah.
little tough. It's a little tough for me to let go because I like to roll my sleeves up and get dirty with figuring out solutions for the clients. Because we work on a lot of tough cases usually. Kind of
Mhm.
branded myself as somebody who's I'll do loans that other people won't do. Uh,
You
so
don't like the easy stuff. You like the
Oh, no, no,
challenge.
no, 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 no. Send us the easy stuff.
You're like, no, no, I take it back. I want it all.
But I guess, anybody can close an easy loan,
Yeah.
So that's one of my niches is that I'm going to get people approved for more, and I'm going to do loans with lower credit scores. I'm going to do a lot of difficult files to help my realtor partners close more business, help more families. And I mean, you make it the major reason why it's so satisfying in this business is because you make a big difference in these people's lives, especially the people that never thought that they could buy a home. Those people give you a
Mhm.
lot more referrals because they scream your name through the hilltops, about
Yeah.
how they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I actually did it. And that's really satisfying. But in addition, nobody does this for free.
Mhm.
So my realtor partners, they want to make as much money as they can. And how are you going to do that? You got to have as much opportunity to close as much business as possible.
Yep.
So I got my hands a lot more in on that. But with the other people on my team, it's pretty much just like, go get them. When you have a difficult case, let me know. We'll take a look at it together. We'll figure out solutions for them. And then, the newer people on my team, I have like a weekly call that I have scheduled with them to just kind of talk about what they're doing, what's happened over the last week, and help strategize ways that they can continue to maximize their opportunity with their marketing plan, and just kind of have a conversation about what opportunities they had and what opportunities maybe what I would have done differently, and
Mhm.
just overall just kind of sales tips and stuff. So I guess the answer is for everybody that's cultivating their own complete business, super hands off. I'm here as a resource when you need me, but when it comes to the book of business that I've built, it's tough for me to let go. So I'm pretty hands on.
It sounds like it's kind of like your babies a little bit. Like you want to make sure like everything is kind of handled. And I get that. I mean, it's hard for me to kind of let stuff go too. I'm like, but I already know all the backstory to it, but like I can help.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you have that team around you for a reason because you trust them, so it's kind of like I feel like in my mind, I would have to kind of constantly tell myself, like, they're around me for a reason. They're good at what they do. They're going to come to me if there's an issue. I feel like I'd always kind of be reminding myself of that a little bit. You did say another thing too that I do want to touch on before we end this, but um, I love those moments whenever you can close on a house and those clients didn't think that they could ever do that. Or it is like their absolute dream home of like what they've always like wanted and they're finally getting. Um, to me, that means so much more. Like you said, I mean, everyone wants to get paid and, you know, compensated fairly and stuff, and that's great. But for me, that is probably the most enjoyable thing, on top of making sure that that process was as smooth as possible. My first home buying experience was not smooth whatsoever. And that was honestly part of the reason why I got into the business, because I wanted to make, I'm like, why was that so difficult? It shouldn't have been that hard. And I wanted someone like on my side, in my corner, like giving me all the information so then I could make an educated decision. And you don't always have an agent like that on your side. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm babbling again at this point, but I just think it means so much more whenever you can close on a deal with someone and they are just so excited and happy and ready to start that new adventure in that new spot. But oh my gosh. All right. That went by super fast. I feel like we need way more time. So you're going to have to come back on at some point for sure. But where where can everyone find you on all the social media, websites, all that stuff?
At the Carl Svensson on Instagram. I'll have to drop it on, in the comments or what have you,
Oh, I'll
because
put it on there
nobody
for
can
you.
spell my name.
You
I
should
should have
have,
picked an easier handle.
well, you should just have like a contest. Like if you can spell my name, then you get like a $5 gift card or something like that.
Free
uh,
appraisal on your house if you can
I
spell
know.
my name.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And then TikTok, I'm Carl the Banker.
Okay.
So
Not the goat.
yeah, I guess I need to do a rebranding.
Hey,
I need to
that's
get a
gonna be
goat mask like Shannon Sharp does on the ESPN. Just
oh
get
my
that goat
gosh.
mask.
I feel like that's gonna be part of your business plan now.
You'll have to check in with me to hold me accountable that I bought that goat
Mhm.
mask.
Oh, you know I will. Well, I'll make sure I'll get all that information from you and I'll put it in the show notes too whenever I upload the video. But thank you so much for being on here. It was awesome to catch up with you and kind of see where you're at with everything. And like I said, you're gonna be back on here. We got to figure out when.
It was super fun. Yeah, we ran out of time. I mean,
I know. But all right, well, guys, thanks for listening or watching, you know, however you're listening and viewing this. Hope you're having an awesome holiday season and um, keep keep watching because there's going to be more guests coming on in the coming weeks. So have a great one.